Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. My name is host Eric, and I am the host of Talking with Famous People. I'm here with MBTV host and famous person now, Chad Crandall, and he is talking about decision-making processes. Disagreements. We just talked decision-making. Now we're talking about disagreements. So I think in particular, we're talking about a type of disagreement between two individuals in which there's some sort of heat or ill feelings associated with that disagreement. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's going to be managing conflict. And first of all, thank you, Eric, for having me on the show. I always appreciate any kind of invitation. So today we're talking about disagreements, and that's kind of the angle I'd like to address. I've been coming across some Myers-Briggs information or published documents that state there's 4 different steps in becoming and handling disagreements that are about you or what you're involved in, and trying not to jump to a particular stage. The TJ personality, the TP personality, the FJ, and the FP all have their certain styles and, strengths or preferences when it comes to handling disagreements, and according to these documents, and this is what I've been studying recently, and different viewpoints where they challenge that. I'm actually going to use a reference tool here to give you a little more information on this particular thing. So I'm going to pull this up. So there's conflict pairs in this particular type, and the document states that each particular type is looking for a desired outcome. Each particular type is at what point they're typically wanting to argue, the cause of conflict, how they deal with the emotions, the impression of others, and they're satisfied when this conflict is whatever it may be at this particular time, depending on the type. So
do ENTP.
Okay, so in the TP conflict pair, typically what the document is stating is the likely cause of conflict for TP is, and I'll explain the rationale in a second, but the likely cause of conflict is challenges to or of trust. And so this is what they state about that. For TPs, thinking is introverted, meaning it operates in the inner world and is not immediately apparent to others. In conflict, it manifests as inner critic who likes to play devil's advocate. Others typically see TPs as people who will support the underdog and question any givens. Individuals with this conflict pair tend to place great emphasis on trust and personal credibility. So this personal credibility is one of the biggest things that may lead to conflict, is they may doubt credibility. And so this trust, they don't place in particular expert or a particular person giving the information. So it's often, that's their whole analysis of this particular conflict pair. As I move down, and I'll actually dive into ENTP in particular, let me scroll to the ENTP so we can go over this particular thing. Yes. Oh, they're going to be at the bottom. So ENTPs, they blind spots, difficulty in empathizing and in bringing closure to a particular disagreement. They have the ability to be objective and create space. They have a contribution of pursuit of clarity, search for the best way forward, not just in solving the current impasse, but for any future difficulties. They offer many different perspectives, obviously. The conflict generators are being pressured into reaching conclusions prematurely. So this can obviously create a conflict in ENTP. The supervision that is too close and suggests they are not fully trusted, and when they believe their ability or trustworthiness has been called into question, or perception that they or others whose cause they may champion have been slighted or judged unfairly. So they tend to ignore the
or anything else.
They tend to ignore the J and the F side of the conflict model that this particular document is referring to. This document refers to the conflict model going through 4 stages. Stage 2 and 3 being the same stage, adding value in a T perspective and adding value in an F perspective, and using the 2 perceiving processes in the sense of J and P to create space and seek closure. So adding value comes from the T value, the logic value, and the human value. And so they naturally have the advantage to focus on that creating space element, which can involve active listening. They tend to listen a little better than, say, a J personality who makes a judgment faster. The P may actually focus on listening. Like even earlier in the last video we did, there was a particular comment. I read about halfway through it, and I'm like, oh no, my brain is coming up with judgments. I'm holding my tongue, but I'm trying to pay attention to the remainder of the thing to get a full context and understanding of what this person, because the whole model is if you don't understand what the person is even arguing about or you don't understand their position, then you may be arguing a moot point in the first place.
Right.
And so that's where, as a J, that's challenging, is because I naturally place these judgments so quickly, and it's like, that's not what I said. That's not what I was implying. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I got to go back and figure out what you were trying to say. Now I look like an idiot because I talked for 5 minutes about something that you weren't even arguing. And so this is where we tend to struggle. Whereas another active thing about creating space is, taking breaks in the conflict or taking breaks in the disagreement. And as a J, that's like somebody has a conflict or a problem. I'm like, no, we're going to talk about it right now. We're going to deal with it right now. We're not going to wait. We're not going to process. We're going to just handle it right now.
I don't want this hanging over my head, right?
Yes, exactly. And this is a big problem for me personally. I want this problem solved now. Let's get it over with. I don't care if the relationship ends. I just want it over with. I just want it out of the way. And that's
I'm a little bit like that with the feeling type disagreements. If it's a really feeling driven dispute, then I'm looking to, I don't want it hanging over my head, right? If there's a lot of feelings involved in it. If it's a dispute about correctness of models or something like that, I know that I'm in the midst of a lifelong struggle for hearts and minds of the world to align with my vision of universal truth. So I understand that I'm in the big fight there, and it's going to stretch on forever. But with the interpersonal conflicts, I kind of share that sense that if it's causing me to engage emotionally too much, I want to get that shit over with fast. I don't want to sit there and let's spend time experiencing our emotions together. That's fucking torture.
Right. And I definitely am that way with either logic or emotions or feelings or ethics. I just want to get it all over, and that's very likely for the TJ conflict pair, which is this model. Now, as you grow and you learn to stretch these other functions, you adopt the entire conflict model from a T perspective, from an F perspective, from a P perspective. And like we said earlier, answering Courtney's question specifically on, what area do you focus? Like I said, Myers-Briggs endorses all areas, of the top of your 4 functions, and being able to stretch into your shadow if necessary when the time calls, though it can stress you out and cause a great amount of stress. But, embracing all 4 angles, I think that we both need to, I need to create space more in my conflict resolution ability, and oftentimes P personalities need to seek closure more frequently.
What do you think about the notion that, in particular, your 5th function, your first shadow function, for you would be TI, and for me it would be NI, that we actually, as we grow older, we increasingly rely on using that, even though it's not conscious. We develop ways of accessing it that don't require our conscious control of it. What do you think about that notion?
I think that's actually really accurate. I've been thinking a lot about the shadow lately myself and saying, okay, how does this opposing function operate in my psyche? And I think there's a really big misconception about the shadow functions. This is a personal theory, of course. It's not confirmed by MBTI, but I think there's this notion that, if I use TI in my 5th slot, that it's worse than my FI. It's used. And that is so misconstrued, in my opinion, because I naturally have a big focus on thinking in general, the thinking function. Now, again, the spotlight is on TE, but there's a little overcast over in TI, and it's operating unconsciously, but it's operating. Whereas the unfamiliarity comes in the feeling function, which is less preference, because what people don't understand is that TI and TE are one function, they just have attitudes. And so they're just one big thinking function in the cognitive psyche, and there's an attitude on it that's placed on that function depending on your personality type. But so I have a natural comfort with thinking, so TI is more familiar to me than even FI.
Right. So I want to pitch a notion about way of thinking about the what do you call it? Not the orientation, but the directionality. What do you call it? What's that word you use? Attitude. Right. Attitude. Okay. That's extroverted or introverted, right? Is that what that refers to? Okay. So regarding the attitude of it, I think of it as being, you necessarily have to say on each of these channels of understanding, so to speak, you've got to say, well, this half will take care of itself. I'm going to focus on this half over here. You basically have to be turned one direction. So with your feelings, you either think, look, my feelings will take care of themselves. I need to worry about those people's feelings and make sure they're cool because they're the ones who are fussy, not me. Or vice versa. Those people need to take care of their own feelings. I got my own feelings to worry about. Now that's the attitude of the cognitive function in that regard. So with TI and TE, you're saying my TI is going to take care of itself. Well, it is taking care of itself. That's the point. And in fact, it's taking care of itself quite well because you're so accustomed to functioning in the world through a TE modality that TI is empowered to function unconsciously with all the tools you provided. And vice versa for a TI DOM. For an NE DOM, for me, what that means is learning to embrace simple resonant truths that make people happy. So I noted most in music making that as I grow older, my music becomes more hooky or catchy or more immediately appealing and with more lasting appeal. I make fewer mistakes. And that means, for me, embracing the introverted intuition when I'm making music to prioritize those which are better choices over those which are worse choices. But that's where that helps me. That's where the introverted intuition comes in, is making those decisions.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an accurate assessment. And I just get really, I'm not depressed or sad, but I get really frustrated in the sense when people think that, oh, I'm never going to be good at TI because it's in my 5th slot or my 6th slot. It's so low, I can't even access FI, so how am I going to get to TI? But that kind of angle and that kind of approach in this numerical or logistical manner, I think is where the challenge is.
And when I'm being TE'd by somebody else, I can actually be quite good at TE. So when I'm an employee and my job is to produce protocols and stuff, I can be quite good at it in my 6th slot. I don't naturally value it. When I'm the business owner, I structure things such that everybody has their own little fiefdom. So I don't have to really control people very much. I just say these are the boundaries of your fiefdom. Yeah, I know it is echoing. It's annoying. I don't know why it's echoing. Somebody has got their mic on and their speakers on. Probably.
I'm looking at the mics right now. It looks like
I don't see anybody else with the music. Yeah, I don't know why that's happening. Hopefully it'll just stop. It's kind of stopped. Okay, so I don't remember what I was saying, of course.
Yeah, I'm getting this pretty bad echo myself. Got some kind of connection error, I think.
Okay. Let me try something.
Maybe we should split this up into parts.
We could do that. This could be part 1. All right.
Yeah.
Part 1 over. Now that the echoing stopped, of course. But still, we might as well. We're at part 1 stopping spot.
Let me reconnect. I'll rejoin in a second.
Okay.
It might be my end.
I mean, I think it stopped. I don't know. I still hear it a little bit. It might be me too. I don't know. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People.